Alright guys, welcome back. Um on a roll with this topic. I'll keep this one real short because I'm freezing cold outside right now. Um mm, when it comes to things that were like maybe secrets from family or friends, I think there were maybe I feel like I had more secrets from family than I had from friends, in all honesty. Like, I was pretty close with my friends. I saw them pretty much every single day of the week. There were some groups of people that I saw for probably almost a straight 20 years, almost every single day of the week. Sometimes it would be different if like their families went on trips during summer, or like if we'd leave, during the summer or something like that and go visit family in the Midwest or whatever, or if they'd leave the country to go visit family or whatever. Like sometimes we didn't see each other in the summers, or like if we did like different camps and that kind of stuff during the summer, or if there was like some spring break. I don't think we really were too into spring break stuff, but maybe if one of our parents or whatever, wanted to take us on a trip during spring break or something, we might not see each other much. But other than that, like, I feel like there were some friends I literally saw like every single day of the week, including Saturdays and Sundays. Like, and we'd have like, we're in the same like class cohort, some of us too. So like, we're the same age, and like I would see them in school all the time too, and we'd have the same teachers, and like a lot of times up until like 10th grade, we only really had like one main teacher or like a couple main teachers. So like your whole grade would like move to the different teacher's class. It wasn't like you had different schedules with like English, math, PE. Like you didn't have alternating schedules where it was like some people were in your PE class, others weren't. It was more like if you're the same grade, you have the same class, same time. And so we always just, even if we did shift classes, it was the same thing. I don't know what kind of secrets I really had from my friends. Like there were some things maybe about like some cultural things, but I think the people who were my friends who came over to my house kind of knew how our household and my parents and family were different from others. I don't think I had to like explain that to them or like hide it from them. And there were some things that were pretty strict in our household that weren't even like religiously strict. It was more like an African strict kind of thing. That like I had other friends whose parents were minorities from other, that immigrated from other places too. And so some of them, they had other like strict kind of upbringings too. So like we kind of, even though it was a little different house to house, like we kind of all knew like, you know, certain ways of being raised, like it wasn't like too off from each other. Like, and a lot of our parents talked to each other too, so it wasn't like we were raised so separated. So I would say I didn't really keep a lot of secrets from my friends. That's the only thing I can really think of is like ways I was raised, like inside the house and stuff like that. Like I don't think they were completely unaware. Like my closest friends kind of were over all the time anyways, and I'd be over at their place all the time too. So like we kind of knew how we were all raised, very similarly actually. Like most of my friends had parents that were, it's very similar. You're expected to follow the rules, don't get in trouble in public, definitely don't cause trouble to other people's parents, God forbid. Like that's even worse than like doing something in your own household. If someone else's parent I don't think I ever had anybody else's parents complaining about me or any of my siblings. Like we knew better. It's like you do not go to somebody else's house and screw around and have them come back and tell your parents that you were being bad like that. Like my parents would have killed me. Like I don't think I would have survived to be the age that I am now. Like honestly, I wouldn't even have tested that. Like it was, yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. Like I did never, like I was an angel at other people's houses. I never got in trouble. Like I was never doing anything Like, I'm not saying that their parents never got mad, but like I never did anything like bad. I never like talked back to them, or like we even went out of our way, like sometimes, you know, if like the parents were like, if they had like dishes in the house or whatever, like we would clean the house a little bit. Like we were very good like house guests, and like I'd help clean up, and like, you know, if they had like younger siblings, like we might like play with them a little bit, and like, you know, like I was very like, you know, help set the table, like help out, you know, if we're sleeping over, just help fold the blankets, and like even if you didn't know what you were doing, like you put in the effort, and like we were very good kids. Like we did not screw around at other people's houses. We all knew better. But yeah, secrets from family. I mean, there were probably a lot. One thing I remember we would do, we didn't hang out like really, really, really late at night, like go out and do stuff late at night. But one thing I remember we would do that was pretty common was we would park outside of somebody's house. Like this was back when we first started getting cars, so maybe like age like 18, 19 or so. And we would park outside of somebody's house, and it would be like a lot of us, and we just hang out in the car, you know, we just hang out in the car. So the windows would always be like super fogged up, and we just have these long, deep conversations like till like midnight or something, or 1 in the morning, and we just like sit in the car and talk. And like we do that a lot on Friday nights, because like we couldn't really go out or do anything, but we just like sit in the car and just like talk. And like that was something we did a lot. And I remember being out in front of my house sometimes, and like my parents would be all like looking outside every so often, and like when I saw them start coming out every so often, like quite a bit, then I'd be like, that's probably my cue to like go in the house. You know, it's like it's 11:30 and my dad's like lingering in his robe, like in the driveway. It's like, I know he's not looking at the garden or anything. Like he's probably trying to figure out what's going on in that car. Like, but we'd be in there talking and stuff, and like usually about stuff that we didn't want our parents to hear. Otherwise we would have come inside the house and just like had the conversation in the living room or whatever. But that's probably one thing I remember the most, is like having all those kind of conversations on a very regular basis. Like, but in the car, we'd be like, I'm in my car with my friends, and like you just like talk with your friends and stuff. And like we didn't go out and do stuff like that, because, you know, sometimes it was like, it's just comfortable, there's already seats, so you can just sit, and nobody else is included except for the people in this car, and you kind of knew like the rules. It's like, whatever we're talking about, you don't really share this outside of the car. Like, it wasn't like, hey, guess what family, what we were just talking about right now, you know. Like, it was usually kind of like, you know, like stuff about like who has crushes on who, and just like different types of stuff that might have happened with different people and stuff like that. Like, not necessarily even like sexually, but just like stuff that, like interactions and stuff like that might have been like interesting or difficult or like whatever, and just being like, we just talk a lot. So that was one thing. Like, whatever those conversations were, like I never was like talking to my family about them. And definitely stuff that we did, like when it was like breaking the rules of the church and stuff, we definitely didn't really like, you know, openly just go like telling everybody. But yeah, there really was a lot of like secrecy, and it was really kind of like weird. Like, I feel like parents would have like the secrecy. Like, I don't even mean like a sense of privacy about stuff. I just mean like this weird like secrecy about things. That, you know, you kind of grew up around. Like, a lot of us grew up around this like, just don't tell people like about this kind of thing, or like whatever. I'm trying to think even if there's like an example. The biggest one I can think of is just like sitting in the car talking. Because we could go in each other's houses. Like, our parents didn't really care if I had friends over. Like, they weren't gonna be like, tell your friends to go home or whatever. Like, they didn't really care. If they didn't want to interact with my friends, they'd just go to their room and shut the door, and then that would be it. But like, we were never like, I don't think we were really allowed to like hang out in our bedrooms with the doors closed and that kind of thing. I don't know if we did. I feel like I did, but I didn't. Like, I don't really know. Like, sometimes, because my sister was younger, and sometimes she'd be in there with us, and it would be like, whatever. But But yeah, I think like later on, like my parents started getting a little bit like keep the door open kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I don't really know. Like I don't think there was any like specific thing that I can really think of as far as like um things that um things that I kept from my friends. I really don't know if there were things that I kept from my friends. Like maybe some stuff. Like if I was like into somebody, I don't think I really told anybody. But I didn't tend to be into people that much, honestly. Like the people I kind of found myself having crushes on, I knew I wasn't supposed to really have crushes on them, so I just never said anything. And it was never like I never remember having that many crushes on people that I knew that other people knew. Like it was more like maybe friends that I had that were like not at all connected to like this religion, and so I never really felt the need to really tell them because none of them really knew this person or whatever. um so yeah, I kind of have friends like that. um I don't know. I'm trying to think if there were things that yeah, like basically the stuff that we kept from our families were basically all the things that stuff that people in their teens and early 20s do that you don't really want your parents knowing about. It's kind of an interesting age because most of the people I grew up around, they went, some of them went the religious ones, some of them went to like a religious college or university. So that's how they kind of started moving out of the house. But for a lot of us who stayed and lived at home, a lot of times we just had these like friendships with people that we just like. I think I kind of hid more from my family, more so my parents, about like having friends that weren't religious. Like when I was making friends in college and stuff, and then my parents would always assume I was hanging out with the kids from church, and which I often was because a lot of them went to the public schools too. But sometimes I wasn't, and was kind of like I don't really want to have to explain. But yeah, I did have like a friend crew that wasn't really religious that I would hang out with them and like introduce them to some of my other religious friends and stuff eventually. But I don't think I really talked to my parents about the other types of people I was meeting and how I felt about that because I really liked those people. And um I didn't think that they would tell me not to hang out with them or anything, but I feel like it was kind of like, why aren't you inviting them to church? And why are like why aren't you inviting them, kind of thing. So I don't really know what I thought, but I don't know. That's kind of how it was. It kind of just was that way. We would just kind of keep things kind of to ourselves. I think some things I kept from my non-religious friends were kind of like the weird religious stuff. I definitely kept that from people. Like, I remember when I moved to San Diego, like, definitely when I was meeting people who, I didn't grow up around, I was like, damn, like, I'm really hesitant to, like, tell these people how I grew up and stuff. But, I was able, because I had been in, like, public school colleges for quite a few years by that point. I'd already had, like, 5 or so years in like community college and then finishing up my bachelor's, and I was already very familiar with like the non-church folk, and so I think by that point I kind of knew kind of a lot more of how to be around people and stuff, and I was kind of very like it was easy for me to blend in, but to some extent it wasn't. I remember the first year I would go back to LA every weekend because I was still very involved in church, and I would go to LA all the time because of that. And yeah, I remember the first day being like in LA. No, not the first day, but like I remember that first year I would go back and forth to LA all the time just so I could do like praise team music and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like, yeah, when I was in San Diego, I didn't really have much of a social life when I first moved there because I was always, I spent my free time on the, it wasn't really free time because it was grad school, but I spent like my weekends, in LA, mostly because of the social circles I had in LA. I was still hanging out with them and stuff. Um, and then, yeah, so I remember when I was like meeting people through like work or practicum and stuff like that. I never really was too open about like religious beliefs or anything. The only thing I really talked about was like the Sabbath. I think I was still keeping the Sabbath when I first moved to San Diego, I think. So I think, if there were like practicums and stuff like that where I would have had to work like Friday sundown or Friday after sundown anytime, I probably tried not to do that, or take any classes that were Friday after sundown, or studied at all, or did anything like that. Like, I don't remember ever doing that. Like, ever going against my beliefs for that. But I feel like when I stopped doing everything, like, I kind of stopped attending church and stopped doing, the religious stuff, and stopped doing the Sabbath stuff and all that. And then I was kind of open to any kind of work and study plans and like study groups. Like, I remember when we would try to do study groups and I'd be like, yeah, I can't do it Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Like, it was just kind of like a whole thing. Like I was pretty, like, keeping to tradition about it. But it worked for me. I wasn't really doing it because like I thought I was better than anybody. It was nothing like that. It was just, a lot of the traditions I learned, like, this is a healthy lifestyle for me to do this, so I just continued to do it because it was part of something healthy for me. But I don't really know, what to think, if there were other things. Like, I just kind of remember that, like, there were some people that I met that I was kind of like, there were certain things that, like, San Diego's a very drinking kind of city. And I remember a lot of times when I even first moved to San Diego, people were always wanting to like go out for drinks and stuff like that. And that just wasn't really culturally what I was used to doing, like going out for drinks and stuff. But when I did start doing that, I went like hard into it. Like, I was just like, all right, here we go, Like, I was like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm all in. Like, I'm not gonna like half-ass it. Like, I was never like half-assing things. I was like, if I'm gonna switch up my lifestyle and do this, I'm just gonna do this. And I'm pretty sure that the people who first met, like when they first met me, people kind of knew something was up. But also because that school was very like culturally diverse, like a lot of the stuff too was kind of like people didn't really know if it was like because I had like African heritage or like what it was. But yeah, there were some people that I kind of talked to about like my religious upbringing and stuff, but that wasn't really, I feel like when I was younger, that was something I used to throw around a lot and like talk about it a lot. And then the more I got, like when I was in grad school, I kind of didn't really talk about it with too many people. Like, I had some people who kind of knew how I was raised and stuff, and they kind of understood it a little. Like, I'd explain it like a little bit, but I don't know. Like, it was kind of a weird time. I don't really think though that, moving to San Diego like made me not want to do religious traditions and all that kind of stuff. That was all me. Like, it wasn't really like something I valued. I was trying to, I thought maybe I'd get ahead in life by just putting all that stuff behind me, because there were parts of it that I found unhealthy, like I've mentioned before. So I just thought, well, if part of it was unhealthy, let me just try to like not doing any of it anymore. But then I noticed that like it did keep my life in balance quite a bit, even though like the social unhealthy stuff was like what I kind of should have done away with, but the other stuff, I feel like I could have totally benefited from a lot of the Adventist lifestyle if I would have stuck with that. Like during grad school, it probably would have helped my health stay on track very significantly. but I didn't have like any lifestyle balance. I was just, you know, however far my energy could take me for however many days I would push, and then I would just basically crash and then just repeat, you know. So that's how I basically functioned. Was basically I was barely functioning at a certain point, and I don't know. But yeah. But yeah, I guess I don't really have too much to say about that topic though, about like, um, you know, keeping things from family or keeping things from friends. I think those were the things I kind of kept or was kind of like more cautious about with new, like me making new friends. I kind of was like, I don't really think I want to tell people like that I grew up religious and all this kind of stuff. But it's not like, I don't know. It's not really something that I feel like if people didn't know that about me, that like I don't really talk about it much, you know, other than with the people I grew up religious with. I hardly talk about it with other people because it's like I know I mean, if they never lived the life like that, it's really hard to be like, oh yeah, this is what I experienced, and like, oh, remember this, you know, like my friends when they come into town or when I come into town or whatever, like, and we meet up, like, you know, the religious ones, like, we can talk about that kind of stuff. Like, it's like it's like, you know, like the back of your hand. You can talk about it so easily. But with other people, there's so much explaining of like why did you do this and why was that a thing? And it's like I don't mind talking about it like at all. Like I love talking about it, but it's just something that's like I know it's like so different like from so many people. And their upbringing and just the amount of people like that I've known in my life, like just the amount of people is just, I think, flooring. Like to a lot of people, it's like I know a lot of people who maybe don't have like such a this type of a social circle, you know, where it's like people that you can just not see for like 20, 30 years and then just like pop up in each other's lives and be like, hey, what's up? And just like leave off where you left off in like ninth grade or something and just be like, all right, what's up? Let's start hanging out now, you know? Or even like friends of my siblings and like stuff like that. Like there's a lot of people we grew up together, and there is this still like this, even the people who don't attend church and stuff, like there's still like this deep community of people out in LA that's like very interconnected with because of this religion. And a lot of us are very much in touch with each other, and it's refreshing sometimes. Sometimes it's like it's just some of the people that are just like I could do without them. But it's like that with everybody, right? Like you can't like everybody and get along perfectly with every single person, and you know, like that's fine. You know, I try to be pretty open with those people about kind of what would help me be able to like hang out with them and feel more comfortable. And a lot of times I feel like they're able to understand it, like, and I feel like they get it because I feel like when they were younger it was more like my family and stuff and other people around were like catering to them because they were ultra religious, and so a lot of people had to like bend to their rules. And now I'm kind of like, hey, socially I kind of need things to be like this or else I just can't do this, you know. It's kind of like I think they kind of like the rules are a little bit reversed, but I feel like they kind of get it. It's like I get that you got your religious thing going on, but I got this other stuff going on, you know. So it's kind of like I think we do have to come to a compromise on that, and I am noticing it's hard, but it's not impossible. Like we still get along on it, and it's not like a big deal, but it is a little stressful. In all honesty, it's sometimes just stress that I'd rather just not deal with. To be honest, I've avoided a lot of situations just because I just don't want to even think about it. But like, yeah, like there's definitely like basically all the stuff that involves breaking all the traditional rules. Like a lot of people just secretly do that. And it would be funny, the funniest thing out in public to like see people breaking the rules. Like I'm not like even judging him. It was just funny. Like I remember specifically one day, like right after church, or maybe it was during church. Like I remember sometimes like when my dad wasn't in town, my mom would just be like, "Let's just stay for the songs," because that's all we wanted to do, and just have the rest of the day free. Because we almost never, we almost went to church all the time. And so, like, on the occasion when I was younger, my dad wasn't always out of town. So, like, he would, be out of town on occasion on some business thing. And when he was out of town, we would, like, my mom would be like, okay, let's go home early. And so we'd, like, go to, like, Sabbath school and the song service, and we'd leave, like, because they do, like, a greeting after the song service where people stand up and, like catch up and shake hands and all that kind of stuff. Wish each other a happy Sabbath, and then we would kind of split at that time and, like, go get, like, an early lunch, or, like, go to the park, or, like, leave church basically. And I remember one time, I can't remember if it was around that time of, because it was still morning, it technically wasn't, like, lunchtime yet, and I remember going to, like, McDonald's one day, like, at that time, like, during church, and there were some other people that would, like, always leave after the songs or whatever and never stayed for the sermon. But I remember at the local McDonald's running into, like, a family of people who had also left church, and then we were all ordering, like, sausage McMuffins or something, and it's, like, pork, and it's, like, we're all buying things on the Sabbath, like, while we should be in church, and we're all just, like, about to eat, and, like, it was so, like, funny. Like, I remember just looking at them, and we all kind of looked at each other, and we all had, like, our church clothes on, and we're all, like, breaking the rules, and it was, like, stuff like that. It was, like, you don't go back and, like, tell people stuff like that, but it was just hilarious, because there would be situations like that a lot that would happen, where you'd be like, oh, like, I saw so-and-so, like, coming out of this movie, or, like, whatever, and it would be like, oh, shoot. But, I don't know. Like, I remember once, I think I've talked about this before, that one of the ladies who was, like, the secretary at our school or something, she was, like, really religious. And, like, I remember once when my friends had gone to Japan for, like, 3 months. And so I waited, I think, to see movies with them, because every summer we used to see movies, like, all the time. Like, we used to see almost every movie, like, in theaters, unless it was, like, a kid's movie or something. Like, we would see almost every single movie. And so I remember they came back, and we used to kind of lie and go to the theaters and get, like, one ticket. Like, you get one ticket early in the morning, like around 10:30 in the morning, and then just see every single movie that you can just stomach to see. And so I remember once, I think I had to go to work after the second movie, but I remember my friends were going to stay for 4 movies, so I was going to go into the third movie with them, because we just watched 2 movies back to back. Pay for 1 ticket. Like, this was lying. We cheated we stole basically 4 movies, but basically, we bought 1 ticket and then, just stayed. Like, if you don't walk out of the theater, you don't have to get your ticket checked. And so we just would go from one movie area to the next, and then they weren't checking. Like, if they weren't checking at every door, we would just sneak out of one and, like, sneak into the next. And we knew what times all of them were starting. So sometimes they just aligned, and we hadn't seen any of the new movies. So it was like there were so many movies to choose from. And so I remember walking out of one. It was probably like our second movie, walking out of one, and we were all about to walk into the second one. And there's this religious lady waiting there with her daughter. And she's like, oh, we're about to go see this one. Or, like, maybe it was a different one they were going to go see. And we were like, she had just literally seen us walk out of one theater and about to walk right into the next door. And we're like, oh. And so we saw her. And then I was like, I gotta go to work, because, like, I worked at the same place as her too. And so I had work that day, I think. And then I went to go work, and then she kind of, like, was like that. Like, I don't know what she thought, but I know she was kind of, like, looking at, like, what movie we saw and that kind of stuff, and I was like, I don't know if this was appropriate or whatever. But yeah, stuff like that would happen, where you just be, like, doing weird stuff that you weren't supposed to do, and just run into, like, religious people all over town. It was just hilarious. But it was funny, because it just goes to show, like, nobody was really following the stuff. And even to go see movies in general was kind of like a taboo thing. So, I don't know. Alright, I'm gonna go in the house because I'm cold.